Today we'll be talking about percent, and this lesson is all about understanding what is a percent. Now, we have learned before, probably in grade 6, what is percent, and percent means percent actually means per means out of, and then cent means 100. So percent actually means out of 100, out of 100. That is basically the short meaning of percent. Now, what does it actually mean? So, what does it mean? We want to change everything to be out of 100 so that we can see or visualize or understand what that number actually is. Now, we have been talking about ratios. So, for example, if I had 2 to 5 in total, so 2 out of 5. So writing that as a fraction is equal to 2 over 5. We can write that as a decimal by changing it to divided by 5. So 2 divided by 5 will be 0.4. Now we can even change it to a percent. What does percent mean? Meaning this is 2 out of 5. I want to change that 5 to out of 100 because that is what percent means, out of 100. So 5 times what is 100? We want to change that to times 20, so that 5 times 20 is 100. And so 2 times 20 is also is going to be 40 out of 100. Now this is 40 out of 100. That is 40%. Now we write this as 40% using this symbol. So this means the same thing. So 2 out of 5, 0.4, 40 out of 100 is the same as 40%. And this is how we write percent. And I'm sure most of you already know how to do this. This is the percent. This symbol means it is out of 100. So this symbol is basically short form for this out of 100. So keep that in mind. So let's talk about the meaning of percent in a more reasonable situation, in something that we probably understand more. Let's say we have the class in a class of 20 students. Let's just say that 6 of them wear glasses. So that's a very low number. I'm just making up these numbers. And so if I want to ask you what percent of the class wears glasses, first of all, let's think of it in terms of a fraction. What fraction of the class wears glasses? It's actually 6 out of 20 of the students wear glasses. This is a fraction. Now we can convert this fraction into a percent. All we have to do is change the bottom number, this 20 over there, and we want to convert that to out of 100. And of course, this one is a very simple example where all we have to do is multiply 5. And so we've learned previously in ratios how we can keep the same ratio. 6 times 5, we would get 30. And so this is 30 out of 100. That's the same as 30%. And then we can write this as 30% of the class wears glasses. So hopefully we kind of understand the meaning of it. Now, what if it's not a nice number? What if it's not a super nice number that is easy for us to multiply? So let me say, for example, in that same class, let's say that, in a different class this time. Let's say a different class. In another class of, let's say this time we have 30 students. So 30 is not so easy for us to turn into 100. So 30 students. This time, let's say that 12 of them are girls, for example. And so what percent of the class is girls or are girls. I'm not sure whether it's is or ours are. You guys can figure that out later. And so with this, that's 12 out of 30 of the class are girls, I think. Okay, yeah, it is supposed to be are girls. And then we want to convert that into something out of 100, and it's not so easy for us to just multiply into to get 100. So one way of us to do this, there are several ways. I'll show you two ways. One of them is easier to do, but it doesn't work all the time. So this time what I want to do is I want to simplify the fraction to make it something that is easy then to multiply into 100. So for example, 30, what I can do is I can divide it by 3 first. I can divide top and bottom by 3. And so this now becomes 10. This now 12 divided by 3 is 4. So we have 4 out of 10. And then from 4 out of 10, that can easily change to 100 by multiplying by multiplying 10. And so all I have to do is multiply 10 to 10, and then 4 multiplied 10, we would get 40%. So that is still an easy number. So that is equal to 40%. Now, the other way, now this only happens because 30 can easily divide by 3 into 10, and 10 can easily multiply into 100. But what is the other way? What if it doesn't really work that well? So what we have to do is we'll have to divide by long division. And so 12 divided by 30, 12 divided by 30, we do it this way. And we want to divide. Okay, so top number divided by the bottom number. The top number goes inside that divide, and the 30 is outside. So it's 12 divided by 30, and 30 goes into 12 how many times? It doesn't go into 12. We know that because it's less than 1, and so it has to be 0 point something, and then we would add a 0 at the end over here. And then 30 times what will be 120, and it just so happens it's a nice number. This time we can just do 0.4, and that will land us 120, which means that the decimal is now 0.4. So for 12 over 30, we can write that 12 over 30 is equal to 0.4. Now this is a decimal. Decimal is out of 1. It's less than 1. And we can convert a decimal into percent by multiplying it by 100. And so 0.4, if we want to convert a decimal to percent, convert to percent, what we have to do is we multiply it by 100. So the steps for turning a decimal into percent will be 1 multiplied by 100, multiply by 100, and all that means is you move the decimal 2 places to the right. That's going to be 1, 2. So we're going to add a 0 over there. And then step 2 is we're going to add a percent symbol. And then step 2, we want to add write the percent symbol. And then we just write the percent symbol at the end like that. And so now it becomes 40%. So let's look at some examples. Example questions. Let's say that out of 50 marbles, 22 of them are blue. And so write the above as a fraction, decimal, and percent. we want to write it as a fraction, decimal, and percent. So first of all, as a fraction, that's going to be 22 out of 50. And of course, with this sort of fraction, we have to simplify to as simple as possible to the lowest, no more common factors. And so that's going to be 11 out of 25. And so that will be 11 out of 25. So that's the first one. And then as a decimal, we want to change it into a decimal. So how do we change it? It's going to be top divided by the bottom. We did that over here, changing the 12 over 30 into a decimal. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 11 divided by 25. Now, this time, you will see that it's not going to be a nice number. Let's go ahead and do that. How do we do that? Let me show my working out somewhere at the side over here. We're going to have 11 divided by 25, and 25 doesn't go into 11. It never will. Fractions, decimals, fractions and percents are always going to be less than 1, and so the outside number will always be bigger than the inside number when dividing. And so 250 doesn't go into, sorry, 25 doesn't go into 11, so we're going to do 0 point, and we're going to add a 0 over here, and now that 25 is going to go 4 times into that 110. That's going to be 100, and though there's 10 remaining over here, and then 25 goes into, we add a 0, 25 goes into that 100 4 times, and so it is 0.44. And so now we can write this fraction as a decimal, 0.44, perfectly. And then we can even write this as a percent. So how do we write it as a percent? We need to multiply the decimal by 100, which is, let me just pseudo write this decimal down here, 0.44. And we're going to move the decimal 2 places. So that's 1 place, 2 place. So my decimal will now go here, which means if it's at the end, it's going to have an invisible 0.0. And then we're going to add the percent symbol like this, which means that the decimal is gone, the 0 point is gone, and then 0.0, it's invisible, so we don't need to worry about it. So it just becomes 40%. Let me just clean that up like that. So 11 over 25, 0.44, and 44%. That's how we write this as a fraction, decimal, and a percent. Now, let's do some other examples. Now, what if we have a number that is bigger than 1? What if we have a number that is bigger than 1? So for example, what does it mean by a percent that is more than 100, right? That means 100 is equivalent. So first of all, we have to understand that 100% is equivalent to 1 as a number. 100% is the same as 1. If I'm saying 100% of the class, it means 1 class. 100% of the class is 1 class. If I'm talking about 100% of the school, it talks about 1 school. That's the whole school. It's 1 whole school. It's not more than 1 school. It's not more than 1 class. It's just 1. So if I'm saying 200% of the class, it means 2 times that class, because 100% is 1, 200% means 2. And so if we kind of list it out, 100% means 1, 200% means 2, and so on. 300% is the same as 3 as a number. So hopefully we understand. If I'm saying 200% of a pizza, it means 2 pizzas. 100% of the pizza means 1 whole pizza. Okay, so let's do some examples. We want to write these ratios. So we want to write the following ratios as a fraction, decimal, and percent. Whoops, I think we can't see that over there, right? Oh no, we're missing. Yeah, we can see that. Make it slightly smaller so that I can see. Can we see everything now? Yes, we can. So we want to write the following ratios as a fraction, decimal, and a percent. And so let's do question A over here. We have 29 to 100, and then B, we have 0.03, and then question 3, let's say we have 3 to 5, and then question 4, oh sorry, C, and then D, I'm running out of space, do it over here, D. And so for D, let's say that we have 5 over 1. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video right now, and I want you to do the following 4 questions, and then I want you to, once you finish, then you watch the solutions, watch me write the answers, okay? So I assume you have done it, so let's go through the answers. If you haven't, then I highly recommend you to do it on your own first. So 29 to 100 is the same as 29 over 100, and so that is the fraction. It's already in simplified form because there's no more common factors. Then let's write that as a decimal as well. 29 over 100, if you divide it, you should be able to realize that it is 0.29. Now, anything over 100 means we're going to get rid of the zeros, which means we're going to move the decimal place 2 places back. So this is the easy thing about dividing by 100, dividing by 10, dividing by 1,000. We shouldn't need to work this out. Okay, and then lastly, as a percent, this is already in terms of a percent. It's 29 out of 100. We just need to write it in terms of the percent symbol. That is going to be 29%. So that is question A. B over here, that is already in a decimal. So we need to write this decimal as a fraction. Now, how do we write this decimal as a fraction? Well, what we want to do is we want to get rid of the decimal place because we don't like decimals in fractions. So how do we get rid of the decimal? We need to multiply by 2 places, which is 100. And so let's multiply top and bottom. We're changing equivalent fractions into the fraction form. So once we multiply top and bottom by 100, this will now becomes 3 over 100. So this is actually the same as the decimal form in terms of a fraction. That's 3 out of 100. That's the same as 0.03. We should be able to see that. It should be quite straightforward. It should be. And if you don't understand, then you might need to do a little bit more additional practices. So this is in terms of the fraction, and in terms of percent, this is just going to be 3%. It is already in decimal form. I don't need to write another decimal. Now for C, 3 to 5 is the same as 3 over 5 in terms of fraction. And then in terms of percent, what I want to do is I want to divide 3 by 5. So let me just say I'm doing my working out over here. So 3 divided by 5, so we want 3 to be in the division, divided by 5. 5 goes into 3 0 times. We add a 0, that's going to be 6. That's going to be 30. And so that's 0.6. So as a decimal, that's going to be 0.6. And then as a percent, we want to move this decimal place 2 times. And so that's going to be 1 place. It's going to be here. And then 1 more place, which means we need to add an extra 0, which means that our percent will be 60%. Now, we should be able to see that if the decimal is 0 point something, that something will be the 60%. So if it's 0.6, it's 60%. If it's 0.3, it's 30%. If it's 0.8, it's 80%, and so on. So the 10th place will be the same as the tens in the percent. And then the hundredth place, hundredth place will be the same as the ones place in the percent. So we need to remember that, keep that in mind. It should be common sense by now. Okay, so last one, we have a whole number of 5. And before, remember when I talked about this numbers being equivalent to the percent over here, so we can continue 1, 2, 3, and then what do we have? 4 is the same as 400%, and then 5 will be the same as 500%. So this as a decimal, this fraction as a, first of all, this number 5 as a decimal is the same as 5.0. That's it, as a decimal. And then as a number, fraction is 5 over 1. We don't need to write it again. And then percent will be 500%. So that's how we do these questions. So for homework, let me give you your homework now. Let's do Oh, I missed one thing. We need to write these in words, right? So what is the meaning of in words? In words means oh, okay. So in words means in the how many hundreds. So let me just quickly write down in words in blue, percent, and in words too, because I forgot to mention in words. So in words, what does that mean? This is going to be 29 hundredths, because that is 0.29. That is the same. So any percent will be in terms of hundredths. So 29% is 29 hundredths. 3%, 3% over here will be 3 hundredths. And then 60% will be 60, and then hundredths, hundred, EHS. And then the last one, 500, 5% or 500% will be, then we're just gonna say if in terms of words, that's, you know, what is 100 hundredths, 100 hundredths, that is the same as 1. And so with 500%, that is just the same as 5. That's it. We just write that as 5 in terms of words. So any whole numbers, you just write it as a whole number. But then if it goes into the percent, then you write hundredths. What if you had a decimal of, you know, 1.3, for example? So let's say we had a number 1.3, and how would we write that in terms of hundredths? Oh, actually, the book does say we're supposed to write 500 hundredths. So I'll correct myself over here. So I'll stand back to whatever the percent is. You write that number as a word. So that's 500, that's 500. And then you add the hundredths in the end. So that's how we do it. So 500 hundredths. So that's how we do it. So we write the 100 and then hundredths. So homework. Let's go back to homework. So exercise. This will be 8.5. I'll just write it out. So homework. I'll write it out in green over here. Homework will be exercise 8.5, and the questions you need to do are, let me choose some questions for you guys to do. Questions, let's do 7, 11, and then let's do 14 and 20. Can you guys see the number? Zoom out a little bit so that you can see. And then let's do a few more. 23 and 'Some problem solving. 33. 34. Oh no, actually, let's do 35 and 36. 35 and 36 are together as one question. Okay, so that's it for today's lesson, and I will see you guys next time. Sorry for the long video.